Hey everybody, this is Carpo. I'm going to do a video about religion. Now, before I do this, I'm going to declare I am not religious, nor opposed to religion. I have a pretty neutral view. I wanted to gather information to figure out exactly how many people were of different denominations, different churches, different sects. Not only worldwide, but within our country. Now, I'm going to present a couple graphs that I made because I find it more interesting. I can look at the pie charts all day long and the bar graphs and I just don't get it. So what I did was I made a graph of my own and I filled in the squares according to the amount of religions in the world and in the US. And I came across with some very interesting information I'll share with you after I'm done showing you this. But I'm going to turn the camera now and show you this graph that I worked out. Okay. Now, first off, this is the best way I can look at it. There's 100 squares here. Each square represents 1% of the world population. Of that, Christians hold 32.5% of the world's population are Christians of various denominations. Now I cross-referenced this with 3 different sources and then basically took the average amount, I rounded it up. I mean, these are within a couple percentage points. So 32.5% of the world population are Christians of one form or another. Now within that Christian denomination, the interesting thing is that Catholics make up 17% of all the Christians worldwide. Orthodox Christians, 3.5%. Other, 5.8%. Anglicans, 1.25%. And Protestant, 5.9%. Now, that was, of course, couldn't quote these sources for sure. Basically, Catholics are 17% worldwide, 24% in the U.S. Okay, now, so we've got 2 billion Christians worldwide, approximately 1/3 of the population. Next, we have Muslims, 21.5%. Approximately 1/5 of the world is Muslim. Now, Hindus come in third at 14% worldwide. And the funny thing is that basically agnostics and atheists, or just non-believers, are thrown into one category basically, because it's too hard to determine actual atheists worldwide. But what they say is worldwide is about 4%, and in the U.S. 1.6%. But anyway, we have agnostics over here, so they're approximately equal to the Hindus worldwide, at 1.1 billion people, compared to say 2 billion for Christians. So there's half as many agnostics. The yellow is the Chinese religions, various folk traditions. These are primal religions, which are about the exact same amount as Buddhists, and they share about the same amount. Primal religions and Buddhism. Buddhism comes in at about 325 million, I believe. Okay, now, this is where it gets interesting. Now, the United States is a completely different cat altogether, okay? So look at that picture right there. It's pretty well broken up into segments. Now we get down here. This is the U.S. Now, obviously the entire top section is Christianity of various sects. Now, down here we have agnostics or non-affiliated. We're at 50 million U.S. citizens. And approximately 16%, which is the exact same as worldwide. So that's a pretty consistent number I found. Down here in this little corner is where the rest of them are crammed into. The orange would be atheism, which comes in at approximately, they say, 1.6% in the U.S. We've got black, and then we've got blue, which they almost look the same. That's Buddhism and Judaism. Now the interesting thing to find is Judaism didn't even come up on the first worldwide map that I showed you, because it was such a small number that I couldn't even fill in a square to represent it. Judaism worldwide, well, people always talk about the Jews this and the Jews that, and this is part of the reason, is because of the amount of power that they hold, the amount of money that they have. And that's why people are so, opposed to Judaism, among other reasons. So in the world, worldwide Judaism is only 0.2%, so 1/5%. So basically, 1 in 500 people are Jews. Now, in the U.S., it's 1.7% and rising. Now, that's 5.3 million Americans, and that's a lot of Jews compared to the 0.2% worldwide. That's quite a large amount. So the interesting thing is Judaism is one of the only ones that's so high in the U.S. compared to other places. Like Buddhism is 6% worldwide, and it's 0.7% in the U.S. Hinduism is 14% worldwide, only 0.4% in the U.S. Islam is 21.5%, and it's only 0.6% in the U.S. That's still 2.2 million American Muslims, though. And, the Hinduism and Buddhism, and Islam basically don't even come in here. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There are 2 billion Christians worldwide, and there are 246 million of them live in the U.S., approximately 1/8 of the Christians. Now, if basically there are 315 million people in the U.S. Now, here, I'll get back to the charts in a minute, I guess. This is kind of fun stuff. I took a lot of notes on this before I got into this stuff. Now, China has 1.3 billion people, right? India has 1.2 billion. So both of those countries are large populations. U.S. comes in third at only, 313 million. And they figure it would be 439 million by 2050. The U.S. is on the incline. India, Indonesia are on the incline. Russia and Japan are both on the decline, obviously, now. They're after Fukushima. 127 million in Japan. They expect 93 million by 2050. 142 million in Russia, the size of Russia. And they expect 109 million. So that one's going to get cut way down. So the reason why I took those is because the unaffiliated people, it says Catholicism is on the decline heavily, while agnosticism, if you may call it that, is on the rise worldwide and nationally. If we were to take the amount of people that are actually Christians in the world, that's a significant amount. But let's just take the 900 million Hindus, for example. The U.S. population is 315 million. There are 900 million people that are Hindu. So that's basically saying that there are over twice as many Hindus as there are Americans. And the reason why I'm telling you this is to put it into perspective, because often we don't really understand how big religions really are. It's hard to grasp it without comparing it to something. So the 6% that still have primal religions, that's still 360 million people. There's still more people that practice primitive rituals or dances than there are even Americans. Okay, now there's a lot of Christians, but a majority of them in America are completely different than worldwide, because we've got 78.4% of Americans as Christians. Now, in here we've got supposedly 51.3%. Now this is, of course, we've got, evangelical, mainline. There's 6.9% black, religions. 23.9% of those are Catholics. And so there's a large percentage of Catholics. And what else? I've got this thing written down here. Let's see. Give me a moment, please. Oh, yeah. It's funny because 3 of 4 Buddhists are converted later. And so that's, because it's one of those religions that people just kind of fall into. But 28% of the United States citizens have left their original religions for another belief. That's about a third of people, third. That's a lot. People search around, and Jehovah's Witnesses have the lowest retention rate. Only 37% still accept the belief after they grow up. So we can look at the numbers and kind of see where we lie. But I'm shocked. The Islam, 1.3 billion people. That's basically 4 times as many as there are Americans. There's 4 times more Muslims than there are American citizens. That's a lot. The thing about Judaism, and this is what I found, is that half of all the Hindus and 1/3 of the U.S. Jews get postgraduate education. So they have 10 times the national average of income. And so, there's always a war going on with Judaism. The funny thing to me was that there are so many Jews in this country compared to, elsewhere in the world. I don't know exactly how many there are in all the other places. There's a lot of information to sort through. What I found was Islam is on the rise while Christianity is on the decline. Most of the other religions are staying steady, and agnosticism is on the rise steadily. Catholicism is way on the decline. Falling in there is the Mormons at 1.7% of the U.S. population. And, there are so many other sects that only take up, say, 0.1, 0.05%, where it's a following. But I tried to get the main ones on there. So, if you want to look at those charts one more time, it's just, there's both of them together. It's just kind of a crazy thought, Christians, Muslims. And so, we hate the Christians, we hate the Muslims. It's like this battle between the world and the U.S. And we're dominated, folks. And that's wild. I mean, that's that's a very significant portion, which is why I think we have so much conflict. Is because there's so many different opposing beliefs, even within that religion itself. People can't even agree on what Christ was, for Christ's sake. No pun intended. So that's all the information I got. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace and love to everybody.